Good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Barnes, Professor of Business Management here at Lakeland Community College, and I'd like to welcome you and thank you for coming out tonight to the Dworkin and Bernstein Management Lecture Series at Lakeland Community College. This is our 40th anniversary of the Management Lecture Series here in Lakeland. We started in 1976. I wasn't there then, but that's when we got started. And I think there's no better way to kick off our 41st year than by having our speaker come and speak tonight. Brandon Chrostowski is the founder and CEO of Edwin's Leadership and Restaurant Institute. Brandon believes that every human being, regardless of their past, has the right to a fair and equal future. It's that belief and his own brush with the law as a young man in Detroit that drove him to create Edwin's Leadership and Restaurant Institute. The program provides formerly incarcerated individuals with training in the culinary arts and hospitality industry and is one of Cleveland's finest dining restaurants as a French restaurant. Brandon is a graduate of the Culinary Institute of America, and he trained in some of the world's finest restaurants. He worked at a 3-star Michelin restaurant in Paris and came back to the U.S. and honed his kitchen skills at New York City restaurants Le Cirque and Picoline. In 2008, he was certified by the Court of Master Sommeliers and moved to Cleveland's L'Albatros Brasserie, where he was the general manager, the fromager, that's the guy in charge of cheese, and the sommelier, the guy in charge of wine. In 2013, Brandon founded Edwin's Leadership and Restaurant Institute. Today, the program graduates nearly 100 students a year between the prison program and the Restaurant Institute, and has expanded into teaching in prisons and opened its flagship restaurant in Shaker Heights. Brandon has been recognized with numerous awards, including the Medical Mutual Pillar Award, the Richard Cornell Award for Social Entrepreneurship from the Manhattan Institute for Policy Research, and Crane's Cleveland Business 40 Under 40 Award. And you got a CNN award today, is that correct? Last week. He got a award from CNN just last week. So please help me to welcome Brandon Chrostowski, founder and CEO of Edwin's Leadership and Restaurant Institute.
All right, well, thank you for making it. Can you hear me all right in the microphone? Good. Okay, as you said, my name is Brandon. It started Edwin's. This idea. It's more of a mission than anything else. It's to change the face of reentry. It's to influence civil rights, and the only way I know how is to do what I do best, and that's run a great restaurant. And so just to kind of give you a small perspective of what we do, if you haven't been there already, is through this video that it was actually a student who shot this and produced it. But it kind of gives you an idea of where the restaurant's located, the energy, the level that we're striving to. So sit back for 4 minutes here and enjoy. I started Edwin's because I got a break. I could have been behind bars for a long time, but I had a judge who was, for some reason, forgiving or aloof. And after that, met a chef who really took that wild energy and kind of tamed it a bit and put me in a direction that changed the course of my life. The mission of Edwin's is to help men and women who are returning home from prison find not only themselves, but a skill in culinary arts and hospitality, and develop their skills as a leader.
You have a chance to actually be reintroduced, to society with a solid job experience. They're teaching you a craft, a skill that's going to help you along the way. It's a good rehabilitation tool.
It starts up here in Dijon and goes down to Lyon. And they have two grapes they're known for. It starts at the beginning. I bring in all the students, I interview them, and I work with them throughout the whole course. And when the course is done, I place every single one of them in a position somewhere around the city. And what these grapes do is they give you a more round flavor. And this blending process is now what's making the Bordeaux grapes so famous.
And I don't know, maybe you guys won't enjoy it, but there's something beautiful in almost a perfect small dice.
So this is the small dice?
Small dice, Brunoise, Julienne, Batonnet. That's the same wherever you go. Really, our goal is that they could go in any kitchen and be as qualified as anyone that just got out of culinary school. See?
Yeah, inconsistent.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about 1/16 of an inch here, but you start seeing your mistakes, And trust me, like I said, this is a lot harder than it looks. But there's nothing quite like seeing someone get it or finding something they really enjoy that they didn't know that they would enjoy. That's the big reward.
If you're willing to work hard in a restaurant, that's how you move up, and that's how you excel. That erases any sort of past mistake. The placement percentage for our students is in upwards of 90% and more. If you want to work and you come out of this program, you're getting the job.
To see them succeed, it really is something special. They become family to us. We spend more time with them than we spend with our normal family.
Just being able to walk out those doors and come out here and you ask a guest did they enjoy their meal and they say, yeah, I had the scallops, it was great. And it's like, well, I prepared those, Like that's the best feeling ever. It's like, wow, they had everything. Even the fancy garnish.
All right, so yeah, just kind of a brief snapshot, a brief perspective of what we do. And so everyone in this room here today isn't just coming here for for a warm seat or a comfortable chair. I'm sure every one of you here today are searching for something. Whether I can provide that or not, I'm not sure. But you're here to see something, or hear something that's different, something that could maybe connect a dot, or maybe answer a question, or kind of put out these myths. What I want to share with you today is my journey. And what it's taken from where you're at in your seat to where I'm up on this stage, and how simple it really is. I tell it all the time, it's so simple to make this difference. It's so simple to succeed. It's just hard work. And very few people believe me on this, but I can tell you for the truth, it is. So, Edwins was born from a break. I mentioned it in this video. How did Edwins, become, and where was it inspired from? And it's very simple. It was, I came from being arrested, and I was young. I was 18, 19, I don't even remember which, but I do remember the experience very vividly. And I was at home, watching a Michigan football game. I'm from Michigan, and there's an Ohio State fan in the crowd, it looks like. And I got arrested by marshals who came in and knocked on the door and says, "Brandon, there I am," and there I go. And people from Ohio say that's why you were arrested, because you're watching Michigan football. And I tell them over and over again, if that was the case, I mean, life would be a little different. But it wasn't. I was not doing the right thing in my life at that time, and I wasn't around the right people at that moment. In any event, getting plucked from your home and being stripped naked and processed like a slab of choice beef, being transferred from cell to jail to another jail, it just sends you into a frame of mind that's unforgettable. And so I'll never forget the moment I was standing in front of this judge. And the judge, I really studied his face, and I was, in between me and this judge's space, he could have done anything with. He could have sentenced me for 5 to 10 years in prison. But he decided to say, hey, you've got more to offer, and I'm going to give you a year's probation. So I'm like, cool, this is great, I'm out of here. Didn't look back. And I just knew I needed to do something different, so I started, working. I've always worked, but I just started taking a different avenue of work. And I ran to this chef, this rather portly Greek chef in downtown Detroit. If anyone's been in Detroit, you know where the Fox Theater is. It was right next door to the Fox Theater. It was a great restaurant, international cuisine, but really steeped in these French skills, these French fundamentals. And Chef George took me under his wing. He gave me a goal and he gave me guidance. And those are the two most important things I could have received at that point in my life. And his motto was, it's not practice that makes perfect, it's perfect practice that makes perfect. So he started giving me the right tools in the right way, in the right standard, and I just continued to practice it and practice it and practice it. And with this belief that I'm on borrowed time, so I need to give it my all. And I did so for a year and a half, and George said, now you got to move on, you need to do something else, go to another restaurant. I said, Chef, I want to go to the school that you went to, the Culinary Institute of America, a rather expensive school that there's no way, my single mother could have afforded, but, I found out a way to make it happen, Got to CIA in New York and realized immediately that I was on a different level than the other students. The students that I was around had a mediocre mentor, or they were practicing not perfect. And so I came to the Culinary Institute of America a leader because of this mentorship. And that's a very important starting point in life, because from there I said, well, if this is the best school in the country, and I'm here and I feel like everyone else is around here in terms of skill level, well, then I can do more. So I went to apprentice under Charlie Trotter. He was the #1 chef in the United States at the time. Infamous for his tactics and his cuisine. And I learned another lesson under Charlie Trotter, and that was make it happen. Chef Trotter would give you these impossible tasks. He would one time gave me a 4-inch spade shovel and said you shovel the back alley. So it's January in Chicago. You can imagine it's not the most pleasant conditions, and the ice is rather thick. But what do you say to a chef? Yes, chef. That's what you say to the chef. There's nothing else to say. So it's like, yes, chef. So I took the spade shovel and shoveled the driveway, and here you are, chef. The job's done. It's 7:30 on a Friday night, the most busiest time of the whole week. Friday or Saturday evenings, right at 7:30, and you think you can't handle any more. And the chef's calling, he's barking out the orders. You say, yes, chef, and you're plating up. When you think you couldn't handle any more, Chef Trotter would say, Brandon, I want to introduce you to Mary. Mary is our guest chef for tonight. And if you don't mind setting Mary up with a plate of, for a first course and second course, and also show her what you're doing here tonight and explain to her how the station works. And, what do you say to a chef? Yes, chef. So Chef Trotter took this idea, this notion that you think you can handle this much, but in fact you can handle this much more, and you can make it happen. And anyone that's worked under the man, he's passed away now, will say the same thing. Chef Trotter taught me what I needed to be, taught me what I needed to know to be the best chef that I am today. But you could fill that but in with any of those, negative words, or, SOB, he was this, he was that. He wasn't the most pleasant man, but he got more out of somebody because of his mental building, his approach to making the best chefs in this country. After Chef Trotter, I said, well, then, I've done this, I've done that. Well, why not just go to France, right? Why not? I got a plane ticket, one way, boop, over to Europe. And I started working for a chef named Jean Bardet in Tours. It's a very small town in central France. And I didn't speak the language, so I was illiterate as well. So I couldn't read, write, or speak French. But I learned the most valuable lesson here is hard work doesn't have a language. No matter where you're at in this world, if you work hard, it's recognizable across the globe. And someone can recognize passion and desire and a commitment to something. So, taking all these lessons, coming back to the only place I thought possible, Manhattan, and just started to refine these skills. Chef Trotter's lessons, Chef George's lessons, and I knew I was going to become the best chef in the world, right? But something happened along these couple years in New York. I would get phone calls from Detroit. One was Quentin. Quentin was someone I worked with in Detroit, and they said he was killed. He was stabbed to death. They found him stabbed 30 plus times in an abandoned building, and I said, geez, man, Quentin was the shyest boy that I had ever met, and just a gentle soul, and he's dead. Another couple months go by, then Mike, the sous chef, was, he paid someone like $5 to cut his grass because the guy just wanted some money, and he said, well, I'll just cut my grass, no problem, but the guy ended up killing him for that $5. So I'm thinking to myself, geez, these people are dying. And I'm sitting here in the finest restaurant in New York City working, and why? Why did this happen? Why am I here, and why someone else is? It's a lesson. It's one of these scenarios that will wear on your heart one day. Why are you here, and why is someone else there? But after a long time and long enough, it wears you down, and you say, I've got to change. I've got to do something that Chef George did for me. Chef George provided me this goal, and he provided me this guidance. How do I build this restaurant that Chef George had for others? And that was the inspiration behind Edwin's. In 2004, I went back to school and wrote a business plan about Edwin's Leadership and Restaurant Institute. Imagine it, there's some professors in the crowd. Your student comes up to your desk with this plan, with this idea. I'm going to build this restaurant staffed by people coming out of prison for the poor, for those who can't afford it, and they're going to be the best chefs in the world. And like most professors, go get them, kid. You're going to set the world on fire. You did it, so that's where the starting point was. And yeah, there was encouragement, and I could feel like this, like good luck, pat in the back. I knew it was going to happen, and for the next decade, just worked on how to make that happen. Just like Chef Trotter said, make it happen. Fast forwarding, when writing the plan, I indulged in a couple of facts, and I'll update them to today's place and time. I said, well, okay, so most of my friends were either dead or in prison back home. And how big is this prison problem? Like, what are we dealing with here? Are we dealing with something that's just a few people? Are we dealing with something that's this new Jim Crow, they call it? We're dealing with an epidemic, and I'm not overstating this. And I'll give you a couple of facts. Currently, right now, the United States, we have 5% of the world's population. Only 5% in this country that feels as big as the world. 5% of the world's population. Yet we have 25% of the prison's population. So when you look around the world and you say those heathens in Russia, those communists in China, these Korean, when you look around the country and you think about how people are running their systems, we're 5 to 8 times worse than any other country in this world when it comes to incarceration. It's the bottom of the barrel or the top of the bucket, whichever way you want to look at it. And I'm not trying to say that we're indiscriminately, putting people behind bars. I'm not an attorney. I'm not here to argue sentencing reform. What I'm simply asking you right now to do is look at this arithmetic. 5% of the world's population, 25% of the prison population. Other numbers to consider, we spend each year about $74 billion to do this, to keep 2.3 million people behind bars. And if you were to take all those in probation and parole, in prison, you're looking at a separate nation of over 6 million people. It's a $74 billion problem. But I want to rest assured, I want to guarantee everyone, our country's got our priorities straight though, okay? We only at this time spend 6 times more on prisons and higher education. So we're walking the right path, right? No, we're not. We're like complete idiots. So you look at this, and again, let's not question the reform or the sentencing and how people are being treated. I'm not even asking you that. What I'm saying is, why are there so many? And the second question I'm going to ask you is, why is there so many returning back to prison? You saw a stat on the screen that said 1 in 3 will return to prison within 3 years. Well, nationally, it's about 44%. So 44% of these 650,000 people being released will return back to prison within 3 years. Okay? In Ohio, we're a bit better. We're about 28%. In Cuyahoga County, 37%. So there's fluctuation across the United States. But think about that. Why are so many people coming back to prison once they've been released? Now, teaching in prison now for about 5 years, and traveling around the state to over 20 prisons and across the country to smaller institutions, I can't tell you one person who said, Brandon, I can't wait to come back. Not one. So why we have this problem? And I'll tell you why. I think we live in a very discriminate culture. I think that we discriminate a lot. And some people may share that same notion, some people may not. But I can tell you that when you're applying for a job, and when you're employed, you're 80% less likely to return back to prison. And the fact is reversed when you're not employed. So when you're checking the application, you say, I've been to prison, I've been to felony. You're not given that same equal opportunity. And when you give someone coming out of the darkness of prison a chance to believe in themselves, a chance to believe again, that's the ultimate civil rights movement. And that's the goal. The goal is to start to say to someone and businesses in our country that when given a fair and equal opportunity, success is possible. And that's what Edwins is. Edwins is hope. Edwins is fair and equal opportunity. So we're a 6-month training program. And yes, we're talking culinary arts here. We're not talking about manufacturing or the travel business. We're a restaurant. But what we're teaching these 6 months is much more than culinary arts and hospitality. We're teaching business basics. We're teaching someone that there's 2 reasons that you're going to be employed, whether you can make someone money or whether you can save them money. That's it. That's why you're hired. Can you make a business money? Can you save them money? So we teach business basics on how to build a sustainable menu, how to run profitably, making sure that the price that you set out to run your restaurant at, you're actually receiving. And it's not walking out the back door, and it's not in the garbage can, and so on. So there's a strong emphasis on business fundamentals. We also teach Serve Safe, which is safety and sanitation. So you can come into a restaurant and say, hey, there's a system here that's a bit broken. Maybe the raw chicken shouldn't be above the lettuce. These are basics that our students are receiving, along with gastronomy. So we know that the ground we're walking on was also paved by someone else. And there's a respect for that. There's a respect for that art and a respect for this craft, and so on. So, along with that, our students work each position in the restaurant for about 4 to 5 weeks. So from hosting to serving to bartending to working garde manger, pastry, the meat, the fish, etc. And that's the 6-month program at Edwins. So along in these 6 months, we're not just teaching this skill. We're doing a couple other things. We're supporting someone's dream. Now someone will say, Brandon, you're amazing, you've done some great work. And I say, you know what we're doing is blocking and tackling. We're building a stage that's fair and equal for our students' desire to showcase themselves on. That's what we're doing. We're giving that goal, we're giving that guidance. No different than what Chef George did. We're giving these little tricks about, hey, you can make it happen with what you have. When you hit that obstacle, we'll go around it, go above it, go under it. However you have to get there, you can get to your goal if you continue to work hard. So Edwins is just more than this training facility, it's hope. There's also a business model. This is a not-for-profit, but we're also a licensed school. We're also a French fine dining restaurant. Believe it or not, our students get paid. So there's a small stipend involved for our students who are there. So when you're at Edwins, you're not there for 5 hours a day. You're here for 10 to 12 hours a day. You're sitting here for a long time. You're here maybe 50, 60 hours a week learning the intricacies of culinary arts and hospitality. I gotta say hi, Jim. How you doing? How you doing? Thanks for making it. It's a really interesting ecosystem in the fact that we're giving this skill. We're helping someone achieve it. We're supporting it with mentors. There's also this self-mentorship inside. So, a new class starts every 2 months, although it's a 6-month program. So when the new class comes in, you have the old class mentoring. And the new class comes in, the old class mentors. So it's instilling these leadership skills. If there's any problems along the way, I've got a very simple philosophy. If you see the problem, fix the problem. Nothing in between. No rhetoric, no thinking about, just fix the problem, right? How many things in life could we solve if we just fix the damn problem? Put politics aside, we put this aside, that aside. And that's what's allowed us to really, surge to the forefront of this idea of reentry. So a couple examples of that is this. Someone says, well, I've got this legal problem. We can go into our pocket of volunteers. We have so many that are committed to helping our students and helping see this mission grow. And they'll say, we'll help them out for free. My wife's an attorney. She helps out with law problems. Jones Day, big law firm. They help us out pro bono. We have other attorneys throughout the state and the city that say, whatever the problem is, count on us, we'll solve it. We've got a doctor, we're actually on his medical underwriter insurance. So we have doctors that will say, we'll treat your students. And when that doesn't work, we'll say, hey, we've got CHAP. It's an agency that comes in and helps, hey, can you get Medicaid, Medicare, et cetera, and they'll connect you with doctors. So there's no reason why we can't have someone in Edwin's program within the first 3 weeks, find a way to get health insurance or offer care. There's no reason why we can't in the first 3 weeks say to our students, you have to have direct deposit. Well, I don't have a license. We'll help you get you one. Okay, we'll drive you up to the DMV, we'll help you fill out the paperwork, we'll even advance you the money it takes to get your license. There's no reason why we can't put these systems in place to get someone to the dream that they want to accomplish. You see, that's the driver in this whole scenario. What's driving the bus is someone's dream. And we're here just to kind of facilitate and guide and mentor and block and tackle so that someone can achieve that dream. And within the 6 months, you wouldn't believe how many dreams come true. Whether it's something as simple as receiving custody of a child for the weekends, or maybe coming over a legal woe, or getting a fine removed. It's quite amazing what happens within these 6 months when you work hard and you don't tolerate any excuses and you just make it happen. So Edwin's also takes place in prison. There's a prison program at Grafton. Some of you may know this, some of you may not know this. But in Grafton Prison, what happens is the same fundamentals of culinary arts and hospitality and mentorship and support get provided once a week for about 8 months. So inside Grafton Prison, a beautiful thing goes on. One, there's this interaction between a culinary dream and someone's desire to achieve it, and it's starting to get met halfway. And what do I mean by that? We're not just taking a textbook in there and a video and saying, well, this is what a cut looks like, and this is what the picture should look like, and so on. What we're doing is we're bringing in the skills and the equipment needed to teach that skill to the top. So, the first time I taught in prison, I said, Lieutenant, I'm sorry. I said, we're going to need to bring some knives in this joint. I said, I can't teach the skill if we don't have knives. Oh, I don't know if And it worked it out. We now bring about 15 knives into prison, and we found a lightweight tether to have it change the table, so the state's happy, but we also have a high-hauled sharp blade, so our students are getting the right knife technique and right cutting, the cutting form. We do the same thing with burners. We bring in induction burners and pots and pans, and all that's needed to teach how to make a béarnaise sauce. How to do a reduction properly, or how to make mayonnaise. All these skills are possible to teach. And they're all driven from basic fundamentals and ratios, like cookie dough, 1, 2, 3 cookie dough, 1 part butter, 2 parts sugar, 3 parts flour, right? That's how you make cookie dough as long as you use the creaming method. If you make a chicken stock, it's the same. It's 8 pounds of bones to 6 quarts of water to 1 pound of mirepoix. As long as you have the technique of skimming and cooking it properly, you can make chicken stock anywhere in the world. So that's what Edwin's does. It's teaching these fundamentals inside of prison and outside of prison, and really paving the way for our future leaders in culinary arts, which is a lot of fun, let me tell you. It's a lot of fun watching someone, that light bulb go off and saying, hey, I did it, or I can do it. And it's a lot of fun proving people wrong, because for the last decade I've been called a fool and everything else in the book that people want to laugh at. But now it's kind of fun looking back a little bit and smirking, I guess. Not going to rub it in, but it's nice to see that a population, a community of human beings. We're not talking of some sort of animal or plague or disease. We're talking human beings. People don't think are as equal as everyone else because of their offense, which is a really sad mindset. Because you made a mistake in your past, you're no longer as good or equal as someone else. Imagine that. Imagine that being beaten into you for year after year if you're incarcerated. And then not only that, living that feeling when you are released, because people still continue to say you're not as good, you're half as equal, you can't get that job. So it's a lot of fun proving this whole this perspective wrong. At Edwin's, it's not going to stop. And with these pillars of working hard and making it happen with what you have, they're all romantic and fine. But the mission doesn't move forward without taking chances. So the first big leap that was taken, aside from opening this restaurant, was starting another not-for-profit. It's called the Edwin's Second Chance Life Skills Center, which happened last year. Within the first year, I can tell you that there was difficulty in students finding housing. The number 1-2 punch in this, problem of recidivism, the rate at which someone returns, is someone doesn't have a job or someone doesn't have housing. So while we're providing the skill for the job, we're providing this healthy culture of building someone up and building esteem, but what about housing? So I said, okay, we got here a very hardworking student. Incredibly hardworking, memorizing the grapes of Bordeaux. Someone who's coming from a homeless shelter comes to Edwin's and learns how to butcher a steak, and then gets grilled by the chef because their hollandaise sauce broke, and so on. So we were asking so much. We were asking an immense amount out of our students, more than you could ever imagine. And not even taking into consideration, we were, but I don't think everyone realized the courage it takes of coming from a homeless shelter with nothing, after being incarcerated for a long time, to a French fine dining restaurant, having to be in the sight lines of a guest who's got high demands, because we were not cheap. We expect a lot of ourselves, so guests expect a lot of us. But going around asking for partners, saying, hey, we have a problem here. We're asking the most out of our students. You have sons and daughters. You go to school, they come to Lakeland College or wherever. Do you want them to stay in a homeless shelter while they're trying to fulfill their education? No. I mean, who would be that ludicrous to even ask? Yeah, that's what we were asking out of them. And so it was about building housing, and no one wanted to partner with us. You can't imagine, well, ex-cons, this person, all right, Joe, you get lost, okay? So it was just saying it's going to happen, and I said we're going to build housing. Upon everyone's dismay and everyone's saying you're a fool again and this and that, we did it in 3 months. Raised $1.1 million. In 12 days, put a 3-building deal together that was incorporated by Jones Day. That's also tax exempt. So we now have a campus. We have a campus 7 minutes worth of a walk from the restaurant in the school, where we have a 21-bed dorm room for our students to live for free, minus utilities, and we have an 8-bed alumni house for graduates who are trying to accomplish their goal and their dream. So they'll pay $200 a month, and they're living in a great, a great home, and a great culture, and a great environment. And the third building, which is being framed out and electricity is being run as we speak, is our fitness center, test kitchen, and library. Because how are we supposed to study the right way if we don't have the right, the right area to do it in? How are we supposed to decompress, when we don't have a gym and a basketball court, right? So these are the ideals that say, if we can give our guests hand cotton cloths in the bathroom, not paper towel, not some, heater that blows your clothes off, can we give someone some nice cotton napkins to dry your hands? Why can't we give our students an equivalent home to live in, to study in, to play in, just like you would ask out of anyone else? So it's continuing to take chances. It's starting this. It's also going on and starting to butcher shop next, controlling the supply chain, looking at everything we do and purchase as a business that sustains half of what it costs to run a school for free. So, doing a $1.3 million in business is great for a restaurant with 60 seats. And that profit, we run very efficient, offsets half of what it costs to run this institute, a little over half. So the rest is filled in by funders and foundations and generous people in Cleveland. But the idea is, what else can we do to spread the mission, to increase the education? And that's just control the supply chain. And it's not unlike any other thing out there. If we can control the quality, the efficiency, we can do wonders. So a butcher shop is the next step after the Life Skills Center is complete. We'll be able to cut our cost of goods by 30%. We'll be able to teach the art of butchery to our students better. We'll even be able to sustain the venture by distribution. And most importantly, it's a quadruple threat. We're improving the community of Buckeye. It's a community there in Cleveland that's seen better days, we'll say. But we're accomplishing all these tasks with this idea and belief that if we take someone, give them a fair and equal opportunity, strive for the top, with support, we can do it. And so it continues. So it's about taking chances. It's about staying true to the pillars. It's not about expanding and saying, let's open 5 Edwins. Well, right now we've got 114 graduates. All right, over 90% are employed. So 100 plus graduates are working throughout Cleveland. They are the other Edwins. They're hiring like we hire. They're training like we train. So there's no need for another Edwins. Keep the visibility high. We'll keep CNN coming down there. We'll keep all the other newspapers happy, and keep the seats filled. Keep the quality high, and let our students keep moving the mission for us. And of those 114 graduates, we have 0% returning to prison. Think about this. 44% in the United States are going back to prison. Why? Why? We're at 0%. Are you kidding me? Okay, so there's something working here. There's a culture. There's a culture that wants to do well. There's a community like Cleveland supporting this with their appetites, with their talents, volunteers, for attorneys, doctors, you name it. I got a handwriting analysis expert at Edwins. And what she does is look at people's handwriting and says, you know what, Jim, you're really strong here. Or you know what, you might need a little work here based on your handwriting. She's been doing this for 60 years. And people love it. Our students say, you know what, I'm pretty strong over there, and I do need to work on this, right? It's about thinking about unconventionally how someone else's perspective can benefit our perspective. Just like we hope that the perspective of being in prison can benefit other employers. There's a positive attribute when you've been incarcerated. There's a passion that develops. There's also a set of rules that you follow. There's so many positive attributes from coming out of prison, just like there is from coming out of college. It's just, is someone willing to value that perspective? And that's the quest that we're on. Convincing employers and saying, hey, look it, you've got a problem with labor. You're short on manufacturing positions. How about we come in and take a look at what makes your manufacturing process top rate? And let's build out a curriculum and how to educate around that. And why don't we fill that curriculum and seats with those coming out of prison, or those who maybe have a little bit less, and start training your new workforce, rather than depending on the government and some college and whoever else employers want to blame nowadays. The fact is, you have to look in the mirror as an employer and saying, it's me that needs to change this, and there's a way to do it. Look at Edwins. They figured it out. They're doing something to make a difference. The road up is uphill, and it's endless what's possible. What started out as a one class in Grafton Prison is now flourished into all 30 of Ohio's prisons with our curriculum, textbook, and DVDs. And I'm going to start to knock on the federal prisons doors and the juvenile prisons and so on. As a restaurant, the model people I admire, it's a lot of work, yes. It's costly, absolutely. But the return on this investment is incredible. Talk about putting people to work and giving them a skill that maybe that they didn't have, or a family that they couldn't provide for, or kids that they couldn't see. I mean, how big can this ripple become? And everyone here can be a part of this. And let me tell you how. One, you can go to the places that you patronize. Go to your local fast food place, go to your local restaurant, go to your dry cleaner, where do you shop? And ask your manager there, or the owner, saying, how do you hire? Do you say yes to people with felonies? Is there a dialogue? Is there something? Just the conversation is enough to plant a seed in someone's head and say, how are we doing this? Is it the right call to make? I mean, here's Frank, and they supported me for 20 years. They're not all that bad. Maybe they're onto something, right? So I mean, you could just ask. Something simple as asking. It's not too hard. You can ask your employer where you work. You can also do a couple other things. One, you could volunteer time. You could say, hey, there's a local not-for-profit here in Lakeland Community College that says, hey, we support those coming out of prison, and I want to get involved. I want to see how this works. You can call up your local prison. There's prison ministry groups if you're religious. There's so many ways to get involved and say, hey, I can make a little difference here. I can make a little difference there. You could, of course, cut us a $500,000 check. We're not going to say no. We'll take it. And if you can't, we'll take a $250,000 check. So, I mean, you can support it with treasures, okay? And there's a couple other ways. You can also just simply eat at Edwin's. I mean, do I have to really twist your arm to come out and enjoy, frog legs and a bottle of Bordeaux? So when you go out to dine, you can say, hey, here's a place that I'd like to take my guests to. Here's a place that I support, and just check this out. Because, little by little, we're starting to convince others that someone coming home from prison is just as equal as someone who hasn't been to prison. And that's the goal at the end of this when it's all said and done and over. And I'm going to leave some time for question and answer, because people have a lot of questions about our process. Well, who do you say yes to? Who do you say no to? What about this? What if someone uses it again? We don't surrender to fear, I'll tell you right off the bat. And we respond like a family would respond. We'll build a better system. We'll plan for a better tomorrow. And we'll encourage. So you're going to have these questions, but before you do, I want to show you one last video. And you remember at the end of this first video, you had that guy Calvin saying they ate everything, even that fancy garnish, right? So he was in our third class at Edwin's. But I want to show you where he is today. And has anyone heard of Peer W? Maybe or maybe not, but he's just really doing wonderful things at one of Cleveland's best restaurants. And I'll just show you a little cut of this. They just shot this. So. How are we doing this evening? Awesome. Thanks for making it. At Edwin's, you're learning everything from the dining room to the kitchen. And how the business runs.
Do you have Moscato wine? We do.
What we try to do here is teach those fundamentals. So if you know how to do them here, you can take that skill and do it anywhere in the world.
My first day of work at Peer W, I was kind of nervous because everybody in Cleveland knows about Peer W, so the standard is real high here. But I felt prepared. The Edwins team gives you the tools to work in any setting.
I started out as a kid in McDonald's, and now I work at one of the best restaurants in the city.
Yes, sir, coming right up.
While we are very excited about being assistants in any way that we can with the wonderful program that Brandon has started, the reality is Josh and Kelvin were the best two candidates that we interviewed at that time. And so we hired them. And we're very lucky because they've done a great job.
That's good.
Chef Regan, he's like a world famous chef. He's known all over Cleveland, known all over the East Coast for just seafood alone, and he's taught me a lot.
Is this a one-time batch of red wine sauce?
Yes.
You can teach people to saute, to fry, to bake. What you can't teach people is how to have heart. And that's what they brought with them, along with a set of skills that they had learned at Edwins. And so they just needed to be taught the recipes. That's the easy part.
I can come in and compete and pursue my career with the best of them. I'm here making it happen.
It was the first time that we had ever got involved with a program like this, and I would recommend that to other places because our experience has been nothing yet less than stellar.
I have 2 kids and they love my job. I'm very proud of that. I'm glad to wake up every morning to come to a great job. My future, it looks pretty bright to me.
It's a nice way to bring things full circle here. Okay, question and answer. I encourage you, ask anything. Believe me, let it fly. I gave a graduation speech at university school, and I made the mistake of saying, "Hey, do you have any questions?" And someone asked a great question, but anyways, any questions? Let them fly. There hasn't been anything that has been asked before, so please, Adam. A good question. So discrimination. Well, there's perception that we have. We can't change everyone's perception, but we have yet to come against a situation. If it wasn't a compliance issue, meaning, say there's a sex offender and they want to be a cook in a preschool, right? There's certain, sanctions in place the government hands down. If it hasn't been a compliance issue, we have not had a problem getting someone employed. We have about 40 restaurants that are waiting to hire our graduates in Cleveland. Now we've sent students all as far as Chicago, Normandy, France, Boston. So if someone's got a dream, we're going to help achieve it, but we have not met discrimination in any of those corners or in Cleveland. Like Chef Regan said, in the kitchen we don't have time to really think about color of skin or this or ethnicity or background. It's can you do the job? Can you do it right? Can you do it now? So in this industry we have not faced that difficulty. And in the climb getting to this, there was some resistance. Some people saying, I don't know, someone's been a criminal. They get nervous, but the culinary industry is very forgiving. 1, because most people in this industry have a background. 2, hard work does the talking. Yeah. But the first one, Edwins, is 2 places it comes from. 1, it's my middle name. My grandfather was a real SOB, and I felt that it was in homage to him in this business that you have to be tenacious. You have to have a tenacity to succeed. So the spirit of Edwins is from that my grandfather Edwin. The second part of it, and what I want it more formally known for, is that it's a declaration that education wins. If we can educate our guests to the idea that someone's just as good, if not better, if we can educate our students to a new reality, and we can educate those inside of prison walls, then we've won. So taking the financial piece and putting it on the front end, and not being afraid to ask more out of somebody who's who may be considered to have less. So what do I mean? It's called culinary math, and it's pushing very hard, a different philosophy and a way of thinking based on numbers. It doesn't involve necessarily a lot of equations and fractions, but a way to look at something. Meaning, so you have a banana, and you buy a banana for $1. And now when you start to mark that banana up in a restaurant, you don't base it off that dollar. You run the yield percent. So you take how much has been wasted, and you incorporate that into the price that you paid. So if you paid $1 and threw 40% away, well, that banana's gonna cost like $1.60 or whatever it may be. And then you base your pricing upon that. It's about factoring in every little portion that goes in the garbage. And then it's also, teaching about costs. So day one in culinary math, we start with the P&L statement. So, part of Edwin's success is being transparent in how things work and giving someone the ultimate perspective. Because you find that when someone has an idea that cotton napkin costs 12 cents to clean, they're less likely to use a new cotton napkin to clean up a spill and find an old cotton napkin. So it's teaching that there's a cost related to this business, and that if we don't balance out or drive a profit, we don't have a school. And that has been the most valuable lesson, I think, to teach. Well, I need to, so it's called the School of Hard Knocks. There wasn't a class that taught, certain things in this culinary math program. There is a class at the Culinary Institute of America that teaches you about how to figure out a formula for yield percent and this, but how it's applied to the business. This business is very archaic. You have to work, you have to pick green beans for 5 years before you can actually flip a steak, and then you have to flip a steak for 10 years before you can, pick up a phone and make an order, and so on. The idea is Edwin is to expose someone to what you'd get in your 10th year, 15th year, and the first day. Because when you teach it from you flip this model upside down and teach from the inside out, you just find a more conscientious student/employee /entrepreneur, because they're equipped and they can see the field. And for the longest time in schools, we've been teaching you, yes, you gradually have to do it, but why am I gradually doing this? Because where's it going? So we like to teach you where it's going first, and then show you how to get there. And I think that's been probably the most valuable lesson in teaching this and seeing it put into action in a restaurant day in and day out. A restaurant is probably the least, you always battle for consistency. Yet we have, the food costs, wine costs, liquor costs, our waste is as low, if not lower, than most restaurants. Why is this so when we're teaching people that have no experience? Because we're instilling a set of values that say, hey, this is symbiotic. If, we don't do this right, we've lost. And it's not just we've lost. The 50,000 people incarcerated in Ohio have lost their voice. And the 2.3 million people in the United States have lost their voice. So we're fighting for something much bigger than just frog legs and escargot. We're fighting for equality, and we're doing it through what we know best, and that's what we teach at the beginning. I've turned down plenty of dollars because it wasn't true to the mission. In fact, and that's why it's taken a decade to really build this model, because I said no to so many and saying yes to just a select few, because in the end, the only thing that's going to change this idea of civil rights is doing it the right way with the right group in the right time period. So I don't take any state or federal money. I have just none of that. None of that's taken. And if there's someone who wants to get into bed with us and say, here's a donation, even a donation, but they're not exactly practicing what we're trying to preach, I think our conversation needs to start on that level. And then we can start talking about a funding relationship. Because the higher the visibility we get, there's more and more people coming out of the darkness saying, well, we want to be part of you, but we want to put our name on that. And it's like, well, here's a company that's just been slapped with so many lawsuits, for instance, and now they want to, either they washing their hands because they're donating to us, or what's the reason? So yeah, it's been a really interesting scenario, and that goes to the press too. I mean, I've turned 7 networks out of the restaurant because they want to film some circus act. They don't want to film this strength of someone's inner ability. They want to dramatize it and say, hey, look what you can do, and look at this drama. Look at it. It's not. They offer you a reality show? Yeah, many times. But it's no thank you, but we appreciate you considering us, and it's not being like you jerk. I mean, so yeah. Absolutely. I would say, it's indicative of the prison system. You look at the prison population, the majority of those incarcerated are African American. I came from a place that is, I'm the minority in Detroit. My wife is, her family's African American. I mean, to me, I don't see it. I guess the best way it explained to me was someone that was with Martin Luther King Jr. during his civil rights, movement. They asked Jimmy Carter, no one liked Jimmy Carter. They said, Jimmy, how many African Americans do you have in your cabinet? Jimmy said, I don't know. They're like, get this guy out of here. At the time, any senator or politician maybe had 1 or 2 African Americans in their cabinet. Jimmy Carter had about 78. So he didn't see the difference. I mean, I can tell you that I don't see a difference with color of skin, simply by experience. However, I can tell you what the facts are because I do see black and white. I also see blue and yellow. Majority are African American, and that's just our system and how it's produced. I think an engineered system, but that's a different debate. I'd say it's about 80-90% African American, 1%, 2% Latino, and the remaining, white, Caucasian. No. I think it's a very different system that we begin with. We're not beginning with the system of, hey, maybe you're not as good, or maybe you're as, you're chopped liver. We have a very equal system when you walk in this door. And whatever skepticism there is, I think is quenched by the idea of, one, where we're definitely listening and developing a conversation with each other. 2, they see me there 90 to 100 hours a week. There's no hustle going on. The only hustle is me hustling to try to make this thing work. So that idea of race and how it is in the workplace is different because of the culture that's been built around it. But I think there is some precious learning experiences that happen. So a majority of our students are black. A majority of our diners are white, okay? So there's this clash that kind of takes place. And I think that both the diner and the student are learning. And I think it's a very valuable lesson that needs to be spread more in Cleveland. Cleveland, I think, is a terribly segregated city. The most segregated city I've ever lived in. And I think that we need to have more conversations like this. And it's not really that this poor black person is waiting on this rich white person. I think there's a human being who has a certain set of values and culture, and there's also another human being who has a certain set of values and culture, and they communicate, and it's beautiful. I mean, sometimes I do hear that, hey, I didn't think white people could be so much fun, or I didn't know that. So you hear some of these stories, but that's what we should be doing, right? We should be conversating. We should be talking about what we value, and it's just as important as what you value, and then we can coexist. But race, I don't think race plays for me, it doesn't play a huge role in this, but I know it plays an enormous role in this. Yeah. It's a very good question. Yes, ma'am. Same thing, tomato, tomato. And it's very simple. We say yes to everyone. Okay? Now everyone's going to say, "What, are you crazy?" Yes, I'm crazy. You can say it. It's on film. So anyone who comes into Edwin's and wants to register and apply, we're going to say yes to, unless they come in and they're drunk, high, or extremely rude, right? Don't care about how someone dresses. Don't care if they can't speak English. The point is that they need to be ready in that context. The second reason we say no is if someone thinks it's a job. This isn't a job, this is school, so the pay isn't that high. But we're going to go to bat for you in every way possible to cut, the cost of living down so that you can afford this opportunity. And we'll even give you free housing, right? So if they think it's a job or someone just comes in, not ready, we're going to say no. But everyone else we say yes to. And I'll make this clear, we don't ask about someone's offense. It's never a question. What did you do? We don't care, okay? We want just a human being who's ready to make a change. The second thing we don't do is ask about education level. Don't give a damn, right? So going back to this experience in France, I was illiterate. I mean, how many people would say yes to someone who can't read, write, or speak? So it's just about finding someone who wants to work hard. So now, given that explanation, let me tell you how we make sure we have the right student. In the first 3 weeks, we grind, and we grind hard. We throw this culinary math, we throw ServSafe, and what we're trying to do is test and see, we're going to give you an impossible challenge, okay? And sometimes it's confrontational. Someone says, well, how do you expect me to memorize in 2 days? I say, well, you write it on your hand, you write it on your mirror, and you put it on a tape recorder, okay? You memorize this. And if you can't memorize it, I'm gonna get you a tutor to help you memorize this. And if the tutor's not good enough, we're gonna get you another tutor. Basically, we're gonna break it down and saying, who wants to work hard? Who out there wants to work hard? And who is not gonna gonna say, I can't, okay? Because if you say I can't, then this isn't the program for you. Because on Friday night at 7:30, when this chef is asking more out of you and you say I can't, then there's a door, okay? And that's gonna be true in life, that's gonna be true in the restaurant business. We need the people who say I can. And no matter what's thrown at you, they're gonna overcome. So it takes someone working outside their comfort zone. It takes someone who is very comfortable in discomfort. Because you don't want to be comfortable, you want to be uncomfortable. I like getting up and not being comfortable. I like knowing that I'm uncomfortable, I got to work longer today because I know I'm actually being effective and challenging myself. Those are the type of individuals we're looking for, and it's very clear in the first 3 weeks who those are. In the first 3 weeks, we'll lose half of who we accept, half. And that's not because we say you're out, it's because someone says, I don't want to. We take away every excuse possible. You know, if someone says, I can't, I gotta watch my kids. Well, we have volunteers who can watch your kids. Okay. I can't because now I have a learning disability. It's no problem. We have people who teach special ed. Okay. I mean, keep throwing the excuses, we're gonna keep throwing you answers until we boil it down to the fact that you don't wanna work hard and that this isn't gonna be handed to you. So it's a unique approach. It takes 10 times more work. It's so much easier to like screen someone and base it off of this or that, but it's proven to find the right student. Now what happens if they don't make it? There's other not-for-profits, there's other agencies, there's other industries. Maybe cooking is not for somebody. Don't blame them. We'll connect them. We'll make that connection. Okay? And also, by design, every 2 months a new class begins. Now it's 6 months long, but it's designed that way so if someone comes home from prison in April, we'll start a class within 8 weeks whenever you get home. So there's, the light's very close to the end of the tunnel. And if you try to do the class and you fail because you're just not ready, maybe you're chasing something, or maybe you want to take care of family first, well, in 8 weeks you can try it again. So it's a very forgiving system. $30 to $40.
And you don't have, there's not been a case where you have more than that?
Sure, so 30 to 40 means if 70 to 80 apply, that's where we hit our threshold. Yeah, there's been times over 80, but they'd be the first one on the list for the next class. Okay. So there is instances where it's like, hey, we're at our capacity, we've taken 90, that means 45, we can only hold 30 to 40. Well, what's gonna happen to 5 to 10 people is we're gonna get them into an initiative program that starts developing soft skills for 8 weeks, 9 weeks, whatever the program asks for, and then the next class, top of the list, let's go. Good question. That's a very good question. So I mean, like I said, we're not perfect, and we do. There are problems that we do have, but again, it's not surrendering to fear. There's two advantages we have. One, we have a student base that's pretty much all incarcerated or was incarcerated, right? So when you come back into this place, you're dealing with like-minded, individuals who are trying to do better. And some of those old habits, some of the veteran students have worked through. And they say, look, man, I've taken this anger management class. Hey, look, I'm doing my 12-step program. I'm doing it 3 times a week. We have big book meetings, but like anger management, that's just a resource we pick up the phone and connect someone with. So we don't do anger management well. I mean, we think we're pretty temperate, but we don't teach the class. That's not our forte, so we have an agency that would do that no problem. The same thing goes with literacy and et cetera. But anytime there's an old habit that flares up, it's again, you have to understand, one, someone's there 40 to 50 hours a week, and we're able to gauge on how someone works, how they're doing in life. So if someone's got like a really down day, it's like we notice that because we're working with them on the up days. George, why are you down today? I lost my aunt, I lost my uncle. It's talking through problems. When we see anxiety or we see anger, it's like, hey man, what's going on? Like, you're not usually like this. So it's about listening. It's about finding out what the problem is, and it's about finding a solution to help that problem, subside. So it's very boutique, it's very hands-on, but it revolves around care. So yeah, we do see it, but we attack it and we solve it. Oh, really good question. So if 100 graduate, and double that, we lose about 10%. So we probably have over 250 applicants a year, where 100 get cut off within those first 3 weeks. Some may try to apply again. And then once the 3 weeks pass, we only lose about 5–10%. So it's very successful after that. But there's also a program in prison that we teach. So that's another amount of students that we serve. Good question. So we're a 501c3 or not-for-profit. We're also a school. So you really can't tip a student because we don't have employees. So what guests leave is a contribution. And that contribution, 100% that goes to the Institute. And from there, half goes to all the students that are working that evening. Whether it's hosting, whether it's prepping. They're getting a share of it. But the other half goes to continue to offset this free education. So yeah. Very good questions. And I'll be around too if you have more. So thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome.